louder.
Wow, this is
Technical difficulties.
Wait, loading.
Buffering.
Oh yeah, buffering. I'm old school. Loading. It's like hashtag still means number to me. Right. Some people get lucky.
Take two.
Okay. Read lips.
Woo!
there's no sound. Don't attract the graboids.
On the set, he spoke out loud.
Oh, we thought he was dubbed.
And then that blows my mind. I got that script, Beneath Perfection, and I thought to myself, wow, this is a wacky idea. Me and this kind of loser handyman, battling underground worms in the desert. But I thought, wow, it could be quite an experience. And then going to Lone Pine to make Beneath Perfection, and the cast and the crew and Ron and the entire team, and the desert and the dust and the heat. And I wrote a song called Beneath Perfection, and my wife was pregnant, and we had our son, and the whole thing was just absolutely magical. And I can't believe it's been 30 years since we made Beneath Perfection. Man, I still have my awesome crew jacket.
Woo! Back that up.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey!
Do I need? I probably need to do that.
Turn it on.
Is there a button?
The button? Hello. Okay.
Yeah.
What I remember. Here's my most vivid memory. Everybody on the shoot got sunscreen in their eyes at some point in the movie and went on the whole day crying.
And to continue on with that, it was like 100-mile-an-hour winds. And I was so scared for Charlotte up on the roof.
Hey, what about me?
I wasn't as afraid for you, actually, Robert. But no, it was kind of amazing. We got to see Lone Pine in every circumstance, weather-wise, but it was gorgeous always.
Am I on?
Yes.
Woo!
I have no memories of this film. But the residuals are good. You get this green envelope if you're in the Writers Guild. They send you your residuals. So you end up looking forward to that green envelope. And every now and then, you get some piece of shit mail in a green envelope, and you get excited. And it's not a check. Oh, back to Tremors. I know I'm rambling, but so what? I think Tremors probably was the last, or one of the last, effects movies that had nothing before CGI came in, computer-generated images. Everything you see is real, whether it's incredible miniatures by the Skotak brothers, or Tom and Alex graboids, which they built and made work. All of that is real. There's no digital anything in that movie, and we're really proud of that. It really worked.
Woo!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quite often when we were digging the trench for the aqueduct, and in that whole area, I can't quite remember what part of the flats we were shooting in, but in that area I remember driving through it, and you'd hit a patch of it, and then suddenly it's talcum powder completely around you. You have to stop, wait for 5 or 6 minutes until it all drifted, settled back down again, and then slowly ease out of it. But it's basically quicksand without water. So, we would be trenching it with a grater, and then suddenly hit a pocket of sugar sand, and the whole thing would come coming down like literally water. So yeah, it's force of nature. Lone Pine, enjoy it.
Is that on?
Yep.
Yep.
Good. Actually, Steve should talk about it because it was his idea, but I will talk about it.
Based on the antlion, which is common around here, and which I saw a lot when I was working on the Naval Weapons Center down in Ridgecrest.
We started looking for how to do this film. I remember coming out here, the first time I came to Lone Pine to look, I first went to Ridgecrest since the idea started in Ridgecrest. So I went to Ridgecrest, I just was driving my car from LA, and I was in the middle of nowhere and got a flat tire. And I thought, this Ridgecrest must not be the right place, because it was a nightmare trying to change my tire.
Try living there.
Yeah.
But then I came to Lone Pine, and I just loved it. And then when Universal started giving us some money, we took a jet all over the West, and
That was fun.
And
They gave us a jet.
yes, we got a jet, but we ended up, our last stop was here in Lone Pine, and this
We've
was
loved
the
it
place.
ever since.
Yeah. This is
Woo!
always going to be the place.
Especially the weather, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like Brent. Brent, did you want to say?
No, I'm just inhaling.
Okay. Well, do that and then tell us about it.
Well, this is on, right? It's funny when you talk, you don't know whether it's on or not. Is it on?
Yes.
Yes, you're on.
You'd think it would sound loud in my ears. I don't know. The last night of shooting. It's the middle of the night. Dark. It's cold. And we're trying to sink a station wagon in the ground.
Yep.
It was a pool of water, but floating on top of it was this very light, dirt-like substance called vermiculite. So it looks like the ground. Very clever, and it didn't work. So we're stuck there at 3 a.m. trying to go, what the fuck do we do now? What we
And Brent, did you want to add something about that?
No. That's the fun of filmmaking, basically. I realize this as I get older and older, and I have these brief moments and these epiphanies where I realize something that's true. And I go, well, that's good before I die. I'd like to learn a couple things. And I realize that the whole reason to go into filmmaking is you just want to fool people. I've just fooled you. It's like, you believe that? This is all bullshit. And it's a real thrill. It really is. And so pulling a buoy under the fucking dirt, it was just, and it works. And if you put a camera on one side of it, it goes by screen right to screen left. And you put another camera on the other side, same shot, goes by screen left to screen right, so you get 2 shots for one, which is great, and that's fun.
Insider tips.
And plus, we were great editors. Did I mention that before? So we knew how to save our asses.
So maybe we can bring Bert up, since he's sitting in the front row.
Woo! Oh, hold on. Oh.
Yeah.
This was a comically paranoid, obsessive compulsive disordered man.
Basically.
And I could immediately relate. As my wife can tell you. No, this was partly Steve. I think Steve is Bert Gummer. He says there's a little, I can relate to it. It's more than that. Steve is the heart and soul of Bert. And I just try to channel Steve Wilson at all times. This was a little bit of my father, who always saw the dark side of things. If things were bad, they were just going to get worse. I used to say of my father, for him the glass was always full, and that glass was full of cyanide.
Like my mom.
And Bert is a little bit like that. I mean, things are always going to get worse. And oh, you've been watching the news lately, have you?
And I believe bought supplies to keep in your house, did you not?
Well,
Earthquake supplies?
Look, I live in Southern California, you have to have earthquakes.
That's right.
He adopted me.
Thousands of gallons of gas. That script, by the way, is here at the Lone Pine Museum.
Yes, it is.
You can see it.
Oh, right.
I donated my
wow.
my working script, and it's in a little glass case over in the Tremors area.
Nice.
Oh.
The hat too.
And your cousins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I went to Jim later in the process and said, you know, that sinking car, never been seen before, pretty unusual effect. And Jim said, well, send me a budget. And so then I ran to the line producer, Ginny Nugent, and said, Ginny, get me a budget, because I don't know how to do it. And Jim gave us the okay, and that's why that ended up being the very last thing we shot, which we shot down near Los Angeles. We tried to find some hillsides that sort of looked Lone Piney, and shot that sequence down there.
The non-collapsing water tower, I resented you for a long time because you wouldn't let me knock it down. And I remember distinctly coming up, aren't we going to knock the water tower down? No, we can't afford it. Please! And then going to each of the producers begging to knock the tower down, and we never did.
I've always heard that you dressed perfection from our dump. Is there truth to that?
One thing that Lone Pine cured for me was this dependency on Los Angeles and Hollywood, bringing the resources from there. When we first scouted the place, the parcel where we were going to build Lone Pine, I was freaked out because it was nothing for, a launch I think was something like 7-8 miles away. And so everything's going to have to come from LA, everything's going to have. And very, very quickly, I realized that all you got to do is ask the wonderful people of Lone Pine, and there was resources, there was great, great talent here. I've made friends here, and I've given up the need to be dependent on Los Angeles when you walk into a new place that you've never been before. And bringing stuff from the dump, I mean, basically as you're driving around and notice things, that would work, and then you ask about it, and people were more than willing to lend. I think one of the trailers that we got on the show, we rented for a case of beer.
That sounds like a Lone Pine deal.
That type of generosity just blew me away. I mean, and I tapped into it, and so quite a bit of the stuff quite a bit of it, I would say close to 75% of it did come from here. We had to start a certain amount of construction in LA and then ship it up because it took a little while to build the stuff. But yes, Lone Pine. And if I may offer a new slogan for the town, Lone Pine, a force of nature.
Find them if you're so inclined. But anyway,
Oh, yeah.
we have probably 30 or 40 call sheets, and what I noticed among many other things was that there was always a quote at the bottom. Some of them seemed to pertain to the actors and jokes and things, and then some of them seemed like Oliver North ends up on one of them. But so why were I've never seen quotes like that on call sheets.
That was our wonderful first assistant director, Mike DePuzia, who wanted a quote every day on the call sheet. And
they're quite wise.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, they were. It's interesting.
Entertaining to read the call sheet then.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on the call sheets, like where you can drop your butts, your cigarette butts, and the fire marshal says this, and blah, 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 like that.
We're a country with a lot of guns. Bert has a lot of guns. Bert loves guns. I've always been proud of the fact that in every one of these films, Bert never turns his guns on another human being. Never.
That's right.
The good guys, we don't shoot each other. We shoot the monsters.
We're going to take a change now. We're going to bring up a few more people. These are the original creators, really, and now these are some of the actors. So if you guys can come up.
Woo! Yeah, I moved it.
Step.
I'm giving you
This is my youngest brother here.
Hey, how are you?
Donated the jacket.
Woo!
$2,000 on eBay.
ended up in the movie. I was doing another film called Meet the Applegates with Ed Begley Jr. and Mike Tapuzian, our first assistant director, was the first assistant director. And I'll never forget, he comes up to me one day, he goes, "You have to read the script. I just read this script. You have to be in this movie." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're this shit kid. You're gonna do this movie."
This is a commercial for commercial for Charlotte here. Is your autobiography still available in print?
Right out there on the table.
Oh wow! Okay.
Always giving. See.
She this is a plug for her autobiography. She sent it to me a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And
I was hoping you wouldn't just kill me.
I read it thoroughly and enjoyed it, and apparently, according to Charlotte, I drove Reba McEntire insane. But anyway, her autobiography's out here. That's great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, I heard. Reba and I were staying at the same motel here in Lone Pine, and she came back from the day of shooting in Bert's basement, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. He's such a perfectionist."
Well, you're in
Again,
perfection.
shoot again, change it, do it. She says, "I'm just exhausted." So that was that. I wrote about that in my book, but I also wrote the next day. In the next page, that Bert wasn't. You are a perfectionist. And that's what makes your character so wonderful and so intense.
Also obsessive compulsive.
Obsessive compulsive.
OCD, yeah.
I was afraid that you would read the book and read that part and go, "Well, heck with her," and throw it across the room. But you did. You read to the next page, and I told you how wonderful you were.
Does anybody have a question they would like to ask?
Right.
Okay, how about there?
Where were your irresponsible parents?
There was rumors I didn't have parents. It's funny. I'll tell you a funny story how Melvin got his last name, Melvin Plug. You probably don't know this, but it's been 30 years. I can finally reveal it. So at the time, there was some kind of festival in town, and I was a little bit of a mischievous kid in real life. I like to tell people I was just in character.
Yeah, you're like, no.
So I got a little bit of trouble at the hotel. In those days, my parents would go back and forth to LA, and I was here alone for some reason, and I got a little bit of trouble, and the hotel basically said, "He can't stay here anymore." Yeah, I said, "What?" And they called the other hotel, and there was only 2 that were open. And Mike Tapuzi goes, what did you do? What are we gonna do?" "Okay, we're gonna check you into another hotel as Melvin, but we need a last name." And they came up with the name Melvin Plug. So I stayed at the other motel as Melvin Plug for the last 3 weeks in the movie. That's a true story.
Nice.
We'll have one more question, and then Melvin has a story. Melvin
Okay.
Plug has a story to tell.
Mine's more of a statement, sir. I gotta say, when I grew up, I didn't have a lot of friends, that's why Bert became my hero. Because when the ground was literally shaking out from under people, he didn't care how much crap they gave him. He didn't care, if he didn't know him. He was the hero to everybody. And I thought, that's who I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah.
I just embody their creation. Okay, so that's
You have to take some credit.
I take some credit. But in the beginning is the word. But thank you. And one of the things I love about Bert, one of these things these guys wrote in that was so wonderful, is he's so. And one of the reasons I think people can relate to him, he's so cocksure of himself, he's so prepared, and yet the ground keeps changing under him.
Mm-hmm.
He's prepared for everything,
Except
an underground monster. He's prepared for this, and then it changes. Suddenly they're flying. He thinks they're terrestrial, and they're flying. So he, in a way, as great as his preparation is, he's like all of us. We never get the full picture. And we always wind up, to some degree, as prepared as we are, falling on our faces. That's the human condition. and that's very much Bert's condition. I think that's why we always love him too, because as much as he gets it right, he gets a lot wrong.
Do you remember that line, "Way to go, dudes"?
Yeah. Way to go, dude.
So,
Way to go, dude.
I was 15, and I was sure I was going to say this line, and like everybody was going to make fun of me at school for the rest of the day. Yeah, I was sure. I went to say, I'm like, I'm not going to say this line. And Ron, he was like, hey, come on, Ron, just try it. I said, no, come on, Ron, I can't. And he's like, why? And I'm like, explaining to him. He's like, okay, just do it one time, just one time. You go, okay, fine. What, like this? Way to go, dude. He goes, okay, great, move on. And flash forward like 30 years, and if you go on YouTube today, they've actually taken that line, and do you know who they've done mix it to the Backstreet Boys? There's a famous DJ group called Sparta out of Germany who's actually taken "Way to Go, Dudes" and turned it into like a house song.
Nice.
And it's got like 50,000 hits, so I was wrong.
Aww. Oh, gave me a heart attack. That wasn't funny. I almost threw my phone to catch you. Ooh.
He has no problem speaking up.
No.
Where's Robert? Mr. Jane? Where's Mr. Jane?
Really bad.
I know, I tried telling them earlier and she just looked at me ugly. Like I didn't know what I was talking about. There we go.
Well, if I'd known that was you, I would have gone.
Here we go.
All right. That's not working, is it?
There we go.
Take two. We got it. That's why they had to do so many retakes of you.
It's Q&A, so Q away.
Anything we didn't cover today that you want to ask as a result of the film? Watched anything we covered at all?
Back there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Where was Bert's compound located? Was it here in Lone Pine or was it somewhere else?
Burst Compound wasn't
It was
here in Lone Pine.
Right, just close, just this side of Independence.
Oh.
There you go.
Somebody mentioned that the sheep might have had tape underneath their feet so they would act strange.
Yeah, what agitated the sheep like that? Were you talking about the sheep? The
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
How'd you
I don't remember. I mean, I'm sure they were scared.
They
had a lot of people around them.
Nothing that's going on tape. Is this anybody's first time seeing the movie?
Oh wow, great. So some
Was
genuine
that the
scare.
13-year-old? Yes. What'd you think?
That's what you strive for.
Where's the special effects?
Yeah, where's the CG? Much better with CG.
For Robert, what did your kids think when they saw Melvin in this?
They liked it. I actually just got a text from my kids. I sent them a little video of all of you watching the movie, and the first thing they say is, "Way to go, dude." And I'm like, what? And my daughter then says, my favorite line ever. I am forever indebted and humble for being wrong. The best director ever.
Film done, and
Yeah, I believe it was 52 days of shooting, but Steve was doing a simultaneous second unit for many of those days.
Many of those days.
So we have.
Brett says in the very last video I just found 56 days.
Oh, right, yeah.
I know, I
On the
was
night
in
of
Lone
the-
Pine for 6 weeks.
Okay. So among those figures.
Yes, somewhere in there. Between
Probably weren't
52,
shopping.
56, and
I
almost twice
was
that amount.
shopping, actually.
Did Val and Earl's truck get preserved anywhere, like a museum, or sold, or?
He wants
We
to know.
get questions about Valorant truck all the time. You know, we just wanted something funky, and they came up with that Jeep Gladiator, which was rare at the time. We had two of them on the movie. If you study the movie closely, they're not identical.
But now I gotta check it out.
We had two, you know, out of fear that one would break down, and we always also could work two different locations with them. And then on Tremors 3, we found one again and used it there. But I get emails, especially on the Stampede side all the time. You know, where do you get a Jeep Gladiator? You know, there's just not many of them around.
Somebody
not
here
preserved,
owns
no.
one.
Yeah.
Cause,
Looking for a Jeep Gladiator on JeepTruck.com is where I bought mine.
Nice.
The question has finally been answered.
I want you all to know that even though we were away from home for a long time, most of us were away for the entire 6 weeks, even though we weren't working the whole time. They made it so much fun to be here in Lone Pine because we worked 6 days a week. And on Saturday night, we were off until Monday morning. And so Saturday night, we would go, there was a couple of places in town where we'd go to dinner. And I remember, you know what a good dancer Kevin is. And Kira was here and she was 9 months pregnant. And to go out and we were all there, you know, dancing and to see Kira with this huge belly and Kevin dancing, it was the most fun. And then sometimes on Sundays, we would all go to Bishop and either go to a rodeo. And there was this really weird rodeo. It wasn't a cow rodeo.
Mule days.
Mule days.
Mule
Oh my
days. We
God,
went
we
to
had
mule
so
days.
much fun. And I remember driving you there. I had a little 2-seater Porsche convertible, and they assigned Mike to ride with me, and that's how we got to know each other. Is the hour drive to Bishop, and then sometimes we would go to Bishop and we would go horseback riding. So this was really one of the most wonderful experiences I ever had on a film, especially, you know, being away from home, being, you know, it was just lovely, and I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
We
so
had
good to
such
hear.
a good time.
Swiss cheese and bullets on anything?
Hey Earl, here's some Swiss cheese and some bullets.
Thanks, Walter. Well, that's Brent. Man. Any weird line like that in the movie?
Some bullets.
Makes sense.
Over there.
In the credits, it lists Fred Ward's character as Earl Bass. At any point, was that his last name, or was that a typo in the?
That was a typo.
Oh, okay.
It's wrong in the credit?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I never did. Yeah. Wow, we have to go back and look at it.
Good catch.
The new colors.
Can you fix that, guys?
What else would I want to ask when we go?
Across the 30 years of this whole Tremors ever did, your favorite moment?
I didn't get a question.
What's your favorite moment?
In the journey of the 30 years?
Oh.
I gotta tell you, I'll answer first. Sorry, guys, I'll jump right in. You know, for me, as much fun as it was making movies, and you know, it's just, you know, it's a challenge making movies, right? You know, and when you're in it, you're making, it's a challenge and there's obstacles and you really try to do. But for me, I think it was more the stuff later on, like the 25-year reunion at the Arclight was fantastic. Today is fantastic, and I'm wondering if, like, for me, the best moments have been the maturation of the film.
And it was a message from somebody who lives in Ohio. Who said, I'm watching Tremors right now on television. How weird is that? I'm at a reunion.
30-year anniversary, everyone's playing it.
What?
30-year anniversary, everyone's watching it right now.
So I totally, you know, went over my head.
I should tell this. Oh my God. I just thought about this.
Oh,
These
so
guys will remember it. Brent and Steve. I had I had an insane idea about 4. You're not gonna remember it until I mention it, because you
Yeah, maybe.
probably put it so far out of your minds. My idea was 4, with 4. Maybe Nancy told me, no! Maybe she never even told you. My idea for 4 was to play Bert's grandmother. Remember that idea?
I do remember that.
All right, that is, and my idea was that Bert got his tough side from the female side of the family, not the male side of the family, and that. Remember, I had this whole idea that
I probably let Nancy field that question for me.
Bert's grandmother was one of those mail order brides who came from the east, you know, and remember there was like, I wanted his grandfather to be about 5 foot tall, and the grandmother gets off the stage and she's just this, you know, very masculine type woman, and anyway, they pretty much said that's not going to happen. But the idea was not to play, but to fully on play a female. It was not to make fun of it. It was to really, like, you know, Dustin Hoffman and Tootsie and all that. I really wanted to play a female, thinking, would it be odd if all that Bert toughness came from the female side? But they said, enough with the big concepts, Michael.
We got this.
Brent, do you recall that?
No, that slipped by me. I would say, Michael, that a giant subterranean carnivorous worm is the big concept. So maybe, you know, but I would love to see you. It would be like Charlie's aunt. I would love to see you do that.
Very good.
Well, it actually it would have been about the 3rd time I had appeared in drag. Seriously, my Broadway debut was in a, well, you don't need. Anyway, but I just love that, the whole transformative thing of acting. It's like if you can go as far afield from who you actually are, that's the fun.
Woo!
Like, oh, can I play 6 feet tall, 6'3" female? It was like, nah, we got enough going.
You got somebody right in front.
How did you feel when the 5th and 6th one came out and you knew that you weren't directing it?
Well, we were not happy about being pushed off of something we created. You know, you're not going to be happy about that.
Yeah.
But that was Universal's decision. For whatever reason, they decided they didn't need us anymore. So we just had to say goodbye to it.
It wasn't just that they were pushing you off. They wanted your names. They were willing to pay a little bit for your names. Just
oh yeah, oddly enough, they asked us to rewrite. We had written a script for Tremors 5. It's ultimately not the script they shot. And they said, would you come back and rewrite it? And we said, well, sure, you know, which of this is going to direct? And I said, oh, no, not that. Nor are you going to produce, nor are you going to go to a location, nor are you going to have any say over the movie of any kind. And we said, well, maybe you should rewrite it and we should go do something else.
I would have used a finger in my hand.
On the first day, we realized that we needed it. Because we started falling behind right away. And Ron and I had worked for years in making short films and so forth, and so Ron just said, look, you've always kind of been the guy filling in the animation and the other shots on our movies, why don't you just keep doing that? So it started out with a little tiny unit, like 6 people who went out. By the end of it, Universal got behind the idea, they saw that it was working, and I had my own huge crew shooting all kinds of crazy stuff. By the end, it was completely addictive. And I was ready to do Tremors 2 by that time. Yes?
Obviously Bert kind of became the head guy of the franchise. Did you guys realize he was going to be the head after the first one or the second one? Did it just kind of fall from the fandom just automatically taking in this character so much?
Brent, you want to feel any of these?
As brilliant as Michael is, well, certainly for Tremors 2, we would have loved to have Kevin come back for that, along with Fred, but he wasn't interested. We actually went to New York City to meet Kevin.
We would have begged him to be in it.
Okay, we showed him a test that had been done, a brilliant test with the shriekers running across the desert, and he was really gracious and said, no thanks, and, so then it became Michael and, Fred's movie. So, yeah, it would have been great to have Kevin in it, but, you know, and then Fred had had enough, and then it was Michael's, and, he's run with the ball ever since, so, you know, it worked. The evolution, I think, was good. I think the evolution was good. I think, you know, Michael as an actor and the character of Bert really can carry a movie, you know, and that wasn't the challenge. The challenge was how do you keep the sci-fi concept fresh and surprising without going off into the ridiculous, which we sort of did. But, you know, you got to go somewhere, right? So that was that.
People have asked me that too, how that evolved, and I said, I was the only one who kept showing up. I mean, it really became pretty simple. Kevin drops out, Fred drops out. It's like, well, can I still work?
Right. I got free time.
I was the only one who seemed desperate enough to be coming back to you guys.
Anyway, yeah, it wasn't the deliberate evolution. It was partly a function of how the movies evolved politically.
I would have loved, the answer is like the rest of you, I would have loved, time and again I hear that, well, can't we have Reba back? And what about Kevin? And it ain't up to me. I'd love it. I would have loved any of these to have those wonderful survivors, perfection, who was left after the first kills, first film, to come back. It just never happened again.
Yeah.
To all of our dismay.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you guys have any thoughts on the series that Kevin Bacon tried to launch as a TV series?
I'm sorry?
You guys have any thoughts on the TV series that Kevin Bacon tried to get off the
Yeah,
ground?
they did. Universal made a deal with Blumhouse, the production company, to do a Tremors pilot, which they did. I've never seen it.
We have not seen it, and they refused to talk to us about it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was like the other story.
Yeah, so here we are out in the cold again. Welcome to Hollywood.
But here we are with this wonderful warm audience.
I'm kind of interested in knowing what has kept you guys going back for 30 years. Like, what is it about the film that touches you guys?
Bert Gummer. Sorry.
The people who had been doing it for all these years, for the home video. One division of Universal, without telling another division of Universal, that's how big these companies are, sold the rights, or basically said, sure, go ahead and do that, on a completely different track from what had been established over all these years. And so I can tell you that the people at Universal Home Video were not particularly happy about this. Like, I mean, basically, what have we been doing? Masturbating here for all these years? Have you not seen any of what we're doing? And now you're setting it off on a different track with no reference to any of the other characters or what's happened for all these years. So there was a fair amount of weeping and gnashing of teeth at Universal itself, because one hand didn't know what the other one was doing, or the one that knew what it was doing didn't care about the other hand. It was just like, okay, we're going to make a deal with somebody else. And it was tough for the people who'd been shepherding this along for all these years to be suddenly sort of move aside. Kevin wants to do a thing here. I'm not blaming Kevin. I'm blaming the people at Universal who suddenly said, we're going to do something else now. And with no regard to, the films that have been made. And I think that I can't presume to speak for anybody, but I say some people at Universal Home Video felt betrayed. I think, a whole different division of their own company.
Crazy world.
Yeah.
Corporate America.
Whatever happened to the ass blaster puppets? Are they in storage or something?
Is Alec here?
Yeah.
Alec, you are here. Why aren't you up here?
So do you know where any of those things are?
Listen, after 3 gin and tonics at dinner, I am not climbing up that.
And I was there. Well, at least he's honest.
On the cover of Tremors 2, it depicts 3 monsters, but they don't make any sense to anything that's in any of the films. Like they've got multiple teeth and multiple mandibles.
Blame it all on the art department.
Well, we had the first monster, we had to do one from the original movie, because they took a tentacle, but we told them you can't show the monster. The monster's a big surprise, but they think it's a snake through half the movie. And they said, okay, how about a tentacle?
With teeth.
With teeth.
What makes everybody keep coming back 30 years after this? I watched this film as a younger gentleman. Getting to see it here on the big screen, sitting here. One thing I'd love to say to the writers, the directors, the people who made this film, I think what keeps everybody coming back is the way you guys told this story with what you had to work with, the budget, regardless the actors that you had. There's something very special that I think is trying to be recreated each time with Tremors 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that you can't necessarily pinpoint. That is still relevant. This movie stands the test of time. It really does.
Thank you.
And this whole area that we're in, we're all here for the Lone Pine Film Festival because we're kind of celebrating the area, but celebrating this movie that showcases this area. But watching this movie stand alone, it's awesome. To answer your question earlier, that's what people keep coming back for. Because you can't pinpoint it. There's no handbook on it. People just do this. And all you guys made that possible. So we're all trying to figure out like what the magic potion is. And we do this in sequels and whatnot. But congratulations for making something that is worth talking about 30 years ago.
Woo! Amen.
Did Bert have an actual job? My constant wonder is, as anti-government as Bert Crummer is, were you living off the government?
That's a great question.
Does Bert have an actual job? This is something, when I spend too many days at home, my wife asks me. You have an actual job? What are you still doing hanging around the house? We're not entirely sure how Bert, he was, he made some money along the way, and I think we may have discussed that a long time ago. But had basically
clues in from the school.
I mean, if silver mines
Inherited,
were really,
right.
I mean, if that
Yeah,
was
Reba
a lot
McEntire at home.
Right.
I stay at home too.
that's a long
The hell
way.
did you go to work for?
Right. Yes, as Steve said, there were some clues in Tremors 4. That is to say, there was a silver mine, wasn't it? It was a silver mine, and which was finally opened, and his grandfather made a pile, and I think Bert was, what do they call him? Legacy? Not legacy, but trust fund baby. Trust fund baby. Who eschewed Wall Street and even Main Street, and went on to live on his own. So he had a pile.
That's what we think, yeah.
In a film like Tremors, where there's so many practical effects and it's like filmed in this kind of unique, isolated area, what is like the main budgetary expense?
Water.
Well, I mean, it's time. Time is the biggest expense on movies.
So, I know the first one is going to be like probably kind of a dumb question, but on the fifth one, when you were first called Pops, how did you feel?
Oh yeah, we didn't find out.
Well, obviously that became a running gag as something that really got under his skin. Number one, he did not know he had another living relative, and to be called by something that inferred he was somewhat old was not pleasant for him. No.
It's a contest now to prevent the online people.
Is it time?
We got about 8 minutes.
8 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
What happens in 8 minutes?
They take it really
Oh, they clear the house?
Through the theater. You have a question?
Yeah.
First statement, tonight, on the Sci-Fi Channel, Tremors was on at 6 o'clock.
I got an email.
You did get it.
I got an email. My friend was
And then I have
watching.
a kind of lighthearted question. Whose idea was it to take Ron's pants off?
Nice.
Harvey Weinstein.
It worked for Alien, you know.
Well, we backed into it from, you know, we came up with endless problems that we thought could happen, and we felt awkward about it, and we tried to make sure that Finn was comfortable with it, and we gave her these sort of ridiculous pantaloon things that she was wearing, so that it wasn't, hopefully it's.
So we all took our pants off.
Wanted to make her feel comfortable.
A lot of guys jacket shorts.
But yeah, it was always in the script, but it was something that we hashed back and forth a lot before we finally shot it. Okay, maybe we have to do some online questions just so we say
All
we
right,
did.
real quick. There are Tremors fans around the world who obviously couldn't be here at this event. I've been collecting many questions from them over the last few weeks. I'll just ask a few real quick. These were already asked today, just skip them. For Robert, how much of teenage Melvin was really you, and what was just really good acting?
I was just a really good actor. Great actor. Actually, you know, there was, I think, you know, looking back, I wonder if like people were actually annoyed with me, or they were just responding to the character. I was just always in character. For many years after the film ended.
And before.
And prior.
Another question, this is for Ron. It says, every director today seems to have a director's cut that comes out after the original movie. If there was a director's cut of Tremors, what scenes would you add back in?
Well, we had some scenes that I really liked that we cut out for pace, and the studio wanted to get into the action quicker. But I mean, there was a nice scene that many of you may have seen in the outtakes on the DVD of old Fred and Edgar, the opening scene of the film. They just had a nice conversation, set them up. We had a nice relationship scene with Kevin and Rhonda that Rhonda and Val that was taken out. But I don't know that I would change anything really, because I do think shorter films is better. not overstaying your welcome.
Was that because you got to cut it the way you really wanted to cut those scenes?
Well, I feel like, I mean, it was really the studio wanting those scenes out more than us. But I don't think that I would want to do another cut to add that time
back in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that almost everything we shot ended up in there? We didn't shoot a lot of waste, really, did we?
No, we didn't. I mean, we had a couple scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those scenes.
Yeah.
Another question, this is for Brent. You've written a lot of memorable lines in these films. Is there any favorite line of yours that didn't make it in?
Probably from Melvin.
Yeah, I gave Melvin a long, tortured soliloquy on the shed roof. Well, there are so many brilliant lines. On the level of Oscar Wilde. I have spiral notebooks filled with. I actually do. It's just so pathetic. It's tons of stuff. I have, thank God for Steve, because he just censures me constantly and organizes it all, so it works out well. But you know, there's a lot of funny stuff that will never see the light of day, I don't think. I I'm trying to work it into my everyday dialogue. It's there. I might as well turn conversations to where. But there's always funny stuff to say. The thing you got to know about that is don't do too much. After a while, it becomes a sitcom, which is dull. Set up, pale, ridiculous situations, just so you can say your thing. The thing you never want to do is turn the story towards, bringing out trying to say a funny line. That's the tail wagging the dog. So a lot of genius stuff goes, untapped. That's just how it is. I might publish my notebook someday.
Yes.
We'll see.
I have one last question. This is from a British fan from Birmingham, England. He and his friends created a Tremors parody, which they posted online. And he's wondering if any of you guys, have seen any of the fan parodies where they recreate scenes from Tremors and post them online.
What's the name?
I'll have to look it up. He did something on YouTube where him and his friends acted out a scene.
We're aware of guys when stuff doing Tremors. It was a few years ago, Steve. Teenage kids doing stuff.
Yeah, I'm aware of some of them. I'm not aware of English versions. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. It's touching that they're doing it, And maybe they'll go on to doing their own ideas after that. That's a cool way to start. It's great.
I think it'd be funny to see an animated version of the cellar, the basement scene with the graboid coming through the wall and all that. What they could do with that,
all the blood
and
out of the
animated
creature.
version where it just went totally
Video game
apeshit.
they developed at one point in association with our favorite studio. What happened to it? Everybody? It went nowhere.
Wait, what was the video game that was online? It was like a web-based game.
Before we wrap up, I all day I've been forgetting to mention this. My dad was very excited that Brent and I were producing our first movie. When he found out about this, he had just retired, and he showed up on set with a video camera, a VHS video camera, and no one told him not to do that. And he shot 20 hours of videotape behind the scenes on the original Tremors. And I didn't pay much attention to this at the time. And only a few years ago did I get this box out and said, I really should see what this is. And I realized that this was a time when there was no cell phones, there was no cameras allowed on a set, and Dad got some pretty amazing stuff. So I'm doing a series through the Stampede website and on Facebook or whatever you do, called Tremors: The Lost Tapes. I have 3 of them up so far, but if you just search for Tremors: The Lost Tapes, you'll see some behind-the-scenes stuff. That it's very slow, and my dad has a tendency to do this with the camera. But there's some pretty fun moments in there. There's some coming up, hopefully in the next couple of weeks with Tom and Alec, the very first test of the graboid on location. So keep an eye out for Tremors: The Lost Tapes.
Now remember to lick that like button.
You heard him, guys.